I grew up in GWR territory. The direct line between Bristol and Bath was through Keynsham, but I had grandparents at Fish Ponds. That skewed hump in Ridgeway Road is where the Midland line passes underneath. I could watch Midland trains being banked through from here, not realising that there was a fascinating route to Bath through Mangotsfield. Brunel had to stop at Temple Way in Bristol. The engine and train shed gave a glimpse of how it used to be. What a place! Bit of a cheat perhaps for Midland services to depart from here, though by the time of this visit the entrance was closed, and we depart from platform 3 complete with a wedding party, obviously on their way to Bournemouth. I don't suppose the newlyweds took much notice of Barrow Road sheds. About to go into terminal decline, as was Fishponds Station coming up next. Then there's drafty but imposing Mangotsfield, and its triangle to and from the main line. Wormley comes into view. We hold up traffic as usual on the busy A420. Bitton is in a flower-growing area. There are none for this train today. River crossings flash by. And we come to Bath and Green Park Station. Intriguing to think that Alexander Graham Bell moseyed around these parts for a while. The Green Park must have been there then, before the station was built. And he certainly wouldn't have been able to avail himself of an excursion booking, Bournemouth for 13 shillings and 9 pence, free if you're age 3. I'm back several years later with friend and cinematographer Ken Barter and his sound synchronizing projector. Plus some more kit, of course.
There was a storm of protest, but the closure process had ground painfully on.
Ken now takes over.
But at last it was all over. The protests, the pleadings, the petitions and the private manoeuvres all had been in vain. The difficulties over the replacement bus services had been resolved, to the satisfaction of the Ministry of Transport anyway. The 2 months of twilight had ended, and even the pitiable skeleton service was to finish on Saturday, March 5th, 1966. The fortunes of the service from Temple Meads, Bristol to Bath Green Park via Mangotsfield were inevitably bound up with the fate of the S&D. And the Bristol-Bath line had suffered the same indignities in the early 60s until its trains were reduced to 3 on Monday to Friday and 2 on Saturdays. March the 5th being a Saturday, the last service from Bristol to Bath was at 12:10, with a return working at 1 o'clock. Strangely, whilst the closure of the S&D aroused such a furore, the end of this former Midland service went almost unnoticed, and there were only a few passengers on this, the last journey. The crowning indignity, the final trip had perforce to be made behind a high-mech diesel instead of one of the Class 2 tanks, which had for so long worked this section. On the stroke of 1, the last train to Bristol left Green Park, watched by a mere handful of people. goods traffic only. Now it ekes out a precarious existence as a means of supplying fuel to the city's gasworks. But for how long? A call at Warmley on the outskirts of Bristol. Approaching Mangotsfield Junction, where the right-hand line leads on to the main Midland line to Gloucester. Mangotsfield station also closed on this day. Since the suspension of the Bristol-Gloucester stopping services, it had been served only by the Bath trains and had lost its reason for existence. But who on that day in March 1966 could foresee that the Midland Main Line from Templemeads to Yate would soon be axed in favour of the circuitous exit via the Fulton Incline, Stoke Gifford and the Yate Curves from the South Wales Main Line? Staple Hill. And someone at least was determined to mark the passing of our last train in the usual manner at Fish Ponds. Sheds soon to be demolished and into platform 5 at Templemeads. Yes, platform 5 is still there, but the original Brunel portion of the station, formerly used by Bath and Bournemouth trains, is now a covered car park.
The line does get a new station though.
This was the day when Avon Valley Railway reached the River Avon, crossed it and arrived at the South Bank, a huge milestone. I asked director Gordon Ashton how he felt after that.
Very pleased to be over the river bridge now. No, it's a lot of hard work and it's gone well today.
The works train was the first to leave from Avon Riverside. It wasn't too long before some heavy metal was using those rails, ex-S&D 7F 53809. Memories were still bright of its appearance at Bath.
And who'd have thought that Stephenson's rocket would put in an appearance? That really is heritage. Avon Valley is, of course, closely associated with the Somerset and Dorset.
Slowly and amazingly, the S&D is being brought back to life. We may yet see a standard gauge Pines Express running again over S&D metals, to original timings and with original menu.
Perhaps, at least, Avon Valley may regain Bath.